Hi, welcome to My Curious Mind podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Rulo. This is just a podcast all about exploring the lives of everyday people. If you'd like to be on the podcast, please email us at mycuriousmindpod@gmail.com. Once again, that's mycuriousmind@gmail.com. If you are a fan of the show, make sure you hit that follow button on Spotify to keep up to date on every episode that we post for My Curious Mind podcast. If you'd like to contribute and help the podcast grow, hit us up once again on that email, mycuriousmindpod@gmail.com, to find out ways to invest in our podcast. That way we can get you merchandise and or special access to the podcast. And finally, if you are a company that wants to push your company out to the people, hit us up for a chance to get advertisement on our podcast. We'd love to work with you. We'd love to help your company grow as well as the podcast grow. So hit us up. Finally, final time, mycuriousmindpodcast.com. Without any further delay, here's the podcast. And we are live, and Clemson is getting smoked. How are you, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
Doing good. Just got to my first break ever as a teacher, so
It's very rewarding.
Yeah, I because just working manual labor jobs, and I was all like, "Oh my gosh, I don't have to go to school."
Now you get to experience being paid without having to work. It's great.
It's awesome. All these, I hear a lot of so teaching is a hard job.
Yeah.
Do not get me wrong; it is a very hard job, but the schedule is so nice.
It's amazing.
And so when I hear people complaining about the schedule, I'm like, this is the best job I've ever had.
Yes. You get those people that have only taught, and sometimes they'll get 3 or 4 weeks in a row of just straight 5-day weeks, and they're like, I'm exhausted. And I'm like, there's people that have been working 5-day work weeks for 20 years, and they're not complaining. So
yeah, I talked to my buddy who works at RNL where I used to work, and he was like, I was like, dude, I get almost 2.5 weeks off, and I'm getting paid fully. I could do whatever I want right now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But man, kind of just talk to me through your season this year. I know it was a rough one.
Yeah. So we finished 2-7 varsity wise. We started the year off with a win that I don't think anybody really expected outside of us.
Yes,
I know we went into it with the mentality of we're just going to go at this thing full bore, and we're going to shock some people. For better or worse, people are going to be like, okay, they came to play.
Yeah.
And I mean, you win a game 55-47, there's a lot of good and there's definitely a lot of bad. You go at 47 points, you're not going to win a lot of games.
Oh, yeah.
But, shoot, throwing the ball, we're 22 of 24, I think, and running the ball, we were getting, I think, 6 or 7 yards a pop. So it was a way to start the year, and I think it kind of set expectations high. But at the same time, I think it kind of almost not hindered us, but kind of gave us a little bit of a big head. And then we go into Freeburg thinking, this is a team that coaches were like, this is they're tough. They're big, physical, strong. They're a single wing team, which is an offense you don't really see ever anymore.
No,
and
it's coming back.
It is coming back. You see it a lot. You see it on Sundays every now and then, more towards the goal line. But and they just kind of came out and punched us in the mouth, and it was shoot before halftime. I think it was 21-0, and we had 1 first down in the entire first half.
Well, we played them at that freshman jamboree, and they in 20 minutes scored 50 points, and I was all at that point I was all we're not going to win a game this entire year. But shout out to them for just building a tough punch you in the mouth culture.
And I was surprised that they were able to. I was kind of surprised they were able to field a team, because the year before the JV they came up for a JV game, and we ended up not being able to play because it got lightninged out. But they had reached out and said, we got a lot of freshmen playing up because we don't have a freshman team this year, and had some guys quit on us early on, a lot of injuries. And so whenever we showed up, I'm like, they got 35 guys over there, and I've got like 16 and 3 of them are sophomores. Like I was like, this might be tough. And then we went back for the freshman game and they beat us 50-0 in that one.
Yeah.
And it was just tough. I think that was kind of a wake up call for those freshmen. And Freeburg was a tough team and they're going to be good again coming up. So it's one of those, not gimmick offense, but one of those offenses you have to specifically prepare for.
Yeah.
It's not something where you can just go in with your own stuff and expect to stop them.
Yeah, no, they're crafty, and it's like you could shut them down one play, and the next play they're still gonna. They might run the same exact play to the same exact spot, and they'll do that until you either stop it or until like they're definitely that old kind of like run the damn ball.
Oh yeah, that's it. I love that mentality. I would never be a single wing coach, but I love the just. I'm going to run the ball and you're just going to take it.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to stop it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, after Freeburg, we went to Charleston, and Charleston was another team that kind of surprised me because on film it was hard to tell because the two teams they had played, they weren't what we're used to seeing on film. But Charleston beat them like they should, and that should have been the key to our guys was, hey, that like the teams are playing that aren't having a lot of success, but Charleston's beating them like they should. So this is a team that you can't overlook, and we just could not, and we just couldn't stop them, and it boggled me because they run the exact same offense we do. They're doing. There's a lot of 21 personnel, a lot of 12 personnel, and they're running the ball, and it's just stuff we see all the time that we just for some reason couldn't stop. And they had a sophomore running back who I think probably went for 180 yards on us.
Dang.
And it's a team that we're not going to see again because I don't know if we're bringing them back on the schedule or not. I think originally we'd only got them for 2 years. I haven't talked to our AD yet, but it's definitely a team that like I gained a lot of respect for over the last 2 years. I hadn't really ever heard of them before.
Yeah.
And they've gone and done some things in the last 2 years. I think they were playoff teams.
Yeah, we went there and played them 2 years ago, and that was probably our best overall team. We had Bagwell still playing before he decided he was just going to go pro for baseball. Jerk. But and that was a team where we went far. We got to round 2 of the playoffs, but they literally. We were watching them and we won by a lot. We're all like, hey, this is
they're just one of those nitty gritty get after it football teams.
Yeah, I don't think they won a lot of games that year, but I was all like, dang, like we're not. This isn't an easy win for us, and it should be.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're in a few years they're going to be like legit. they're gonna have a shot.
Yeah, so. And they're gonna be really good for the next couple of years too because they got a lot of youth that are coming back. I want to say their quarterback's gonna be back again. I don't know, but the one change that I looked at, I was like, oh crap. They had a right guard who was a stud the year before, and then lo and behold, I'm watching film. I'm like, who is this fullback wearing 44 that is built like a tank? And it was the same kid playing guard the year before. And I'm like, that kid is living every lineman's dream right now, just playing fullback, toting the rock, and just taking linebackers' heads off.
Yeah,
like he's just living it.
Yeah, that's what Habermill did for us. He was a lineman as freshman, and then kind of a little bit into sophomore, and then we're all like, oh, like we should just let him run around and absolutely destroy littler guys.
Well, our boy, our fellow Mr. Panther now, Tucker Otwell.
Oh yeah.
He probably played more positions than I've ever seen, like anyone in a career. He started O-line, D-line, went O-line linebacker, then halfway through his I think junior year, he was still playing JV a little bit. I was like, can you play fullback? He goes, I will do anything to play fullback right now. And I was like, all right. So he became our starting fullback. And then this last year he was getting fullback reps and playing a lot of linebacker. And then by the end of the year, he was playing almost strictly D end and subbing in on O-line. And the Mascuda game, he ended up starting both ways. And, he was just all over the field. And he was a kid that, like, he was one of those, like, he kind of flew under the radar, but then you look up at the end of the year, you're like, this guy played as many snaps as anybody else. Like, he was just all over the place.
Yeah. That's what you love about, like, lower, like, small school football. Is you just got those guys who, they're probably, and he might, but you got those guys who probably won't ever play football ever again after their senior year, and they just go and they're like, hey, this is all I got right now, so I will do literally anything
Yeah.
like anywhere.
Mhm. Well, I kind of had that talk with Gage Walker because I mean, my opinion, he was the best overall football player we had this
Yeah.
year, and I think he's always been the best football player in that class. But I was kind of like, "What are you thinking about, like, for like, are you wanting to play ball at the next level?" He was like, "I'm like, you could."
Yeah.
He was like, "I just want to race cars, man." Like, I respect it. I love it.
Yeah. And he's good at it too.
Oh, he's yeah. I love giving him crap because I'm like, "You spent all that time. You've won how many races?" He's like, 2. Love it. It's just dedication.
Yeah, but it's shout out to him because he might be 18 now.
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be 18. So he's been doing it for a couple years, and in that type of I had a buddy who was a racer, and he kind of was telling me, like you have to literally start that young because it's just such a hard, such a hard like group to get into. And this kid, he's from California.
Oh yeah.
Well, he's not a kid anymore. He's a grown man, but he's like, I left school and became homeschooled just to focus on racing.
Yeah.
And he's like, so he's traveling the world,
Yeah.
16, 17 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like literally he had a full-time job as a 15, 16-year-old or 16, 17-year-old racing. And it's like, dude, he's supposed to be taking an ACT right now.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be going to prom.
This guy's traveling the world like a celebrity.
Yeah. And so that is a very hard, I don't want to say field, but like sport to get into is racing. And you gotta be a gearhead. You gotta,
oh yeah.
It's not as simple as just getting in a car and driving fast.
Yeah, and I think Gage is specifically he's going to like, I don't know what school he's going to. I think it was like in like Iowa or Ohio or something, but it was like specifically for like race car like engine repair, stuff like that. So I think that he's just wanting to do that the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, you love when you get a kid that just like knows what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And there's really no like kind of laziness to it. He's like, I'm going at this as hard as I can. And
yeah.
But
yeah, we had kids this year that were like, I was like, dang, they're really good football players. And they're like, no, I want to be an electrician.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, you can't. You can't. It's hard to find a school where you can do it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's like good,
and be an
it's
electrician.
good that you know what you want to do, because I'm 26 and I still don't know what I want to do.
No, and I especially with the kids I have in my class, like they're specifically with me because they're behind and they're trying to get caught up.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, they're fighting this battle of like, okay, I'm exhausting all of my energy on getting caught up, and I'm not spending any time thinking about what's next. So I kind of have to do a little bit of that for them, like, and just like start force feeding them like options, like, well, you can always go Lewis and Clark. You can always like Rankin's always an option. You can just go straight into the workforce. There's all these other things that you can do, and trying to get them on that track of like, okay, now that you're done, like, here's what you got to think of next. Like I just had one kid graduate, like quote unquote graduate. He finished up. He got to 22 credits and he doesn't have to show up anymore.
Yeah.
And within a day of graduating, he started working as a carpenter. So he's ahead of the game.
That's good, because
a
lot of those kids, you have to worry about them going to jail.
Yeah.
While you're teaching them.
Yeah. Well, some of my kids, I don't have to worry about that specifically. Maybe kids in other classrooms, I don't have as many of the behavior issues as much.
The kids that are behind.
Just the kids that are behind.
Yeah.
And, you know, but I mean, every kid's different in their own way. I mean, with this year's been awesome, especially in my room. Like we've hardly had any issues that have been like breaking to the school. I mean, there's been a few instances here and there, but you have that even at the high school. I mean, shoot, I guarantee if you go per capita, I guarantee we have less behavior issues in the high school. Like you have less kids referred to the office and stuff like that. So, you know, I think we do a good job of keeping.
Yeah, well, you guys got a good staff going there.
Yeah, no, that's part of what got me into it.
And I think the behavior, like for behavioral development kids, I think it's very, very important to have a lot of male, because it is very male dominated.
Yeah,
and male dominated. Students are the ones with behavior problems. So if you have like really, really good male like voices in there, because at least in my experiences, a lot of the kids that when I was in a BD school, they had they didn't have dads, so they don't really they don't really know how to be a man. And so when you're going through and you're around a culture of being a bad kid,
Mhm.
it's really, really hard to get steered in the right
because
way.
you really don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And I do what I can for them. It's not like I'm sitting there trying to be their dad. It's just I just give them the advice that I can, and I try to work with them. We have a social development class that we do every morning, and it's not long. It's like 10-15 minutes about what you can expect a high schooler in that environment's attention span to be. But it's just a lot of like
What's a pick?
Oh gosh.
Oh, he's gonna score.
He is gonna score.
That was crazy.
Oh,
That's a
get Arch in there.
oh no, there's a flag.
It's coming back. No, but yeah, we're
social development.
attention span.
You're talking about social development.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's down.
But a lot of what we try to focus on is getting them to like be in the present moment. We use present moment a lot, like because a lot of them they come to school already like ticked off about something, like upset about something the night before. I got earlier this month, I had a kid come in and he was just already like cussing up a storm, like threw his bag across the room, and I'm like, dude, what is going on? And he's like, I need a beanbag. I'm like, okay, well, you know the rule. Like, you can't have a beanbag until you're done with your work. He was like, I'm getting a beanbag. Like, you can't tell me I'm not. And I'm like, who are you mad at? Because it's not me. And he was like, I slept in my car last night. I am not. I'm getting a beanbag. And I'm like,
Dang.
get this man a beanbag. Like and so it's just like you want to have these strict set of rules, but at the same time you got to be a little understanding.
Yeah, no.
And it's every day is a different adventure. You honestly never know who's going to come in the door. Like you don't know who's going to show up, and the ones that do show up, I mean, you just kind of have to roll with it and figure out everything.
And it's so easy for people that have never been in that environment to be like, you need to be super strict on them. They shouldn't come in the class cussing and like stuff like that. And it's all like myself, I've never had to worry about where I was going to sleep at night. At 26, even paying bills by myself, like even if I get behind, I know like, hey, if stuff gets bad, I have a supporting cast that's going to help me out. The kids that are for the most part, some of them are just bad kids that are just being jerks, but for the most part, these are kids that have literally had to grow up at a young age that can't understand like trauma is all that they have. So when we wake up, maybe our coffee didn't get made the right way and we're pissed off. But these kids literally, like you said, dude slept in his car.
Yeah.
Like he had something going on with his family. I had to worry about constantly when I was in that, like where my kids were sleeping that night, because you never knew what kind of person you were gonna get the next day.
Yeah.
And when you're literally going through school, the only thing you should have to be worried about is being a kid. Like everything, all the pressure of life should be taken off you. For a lot of kids, it's not. I mean, obviously stuff happens to everybody, but for these kids, it's like school is their only place where they can be safe. And that's crazy.
And there's a lot of things that we try to do for them. Like every Friday we send them home with, we just fill up like bags of just food, like just stuff to get them through the weekend, because we know a lot of them, like they don't really eat, or they don't really get to eat when they're outside of school. And some of them, I'm kind of convinced some of them, that's the only reason they show up is because that they know that they're going to be able, like they have somewhere that they can go that is an enclosed building with air or heat, and they're able to eat. And it kind of put a lot of things in perspective for me, because I am sitting here thinking about like, oh, I got these bills to pay and I got all this, and then I see these kids walk in wearing the same clothes that I'm like maybe it's not so bad, and it makes me grateful, but it makes me like want to work that much harder for them so that they can work themselves to a point where they can get to where like we are, where the biggest thing they have to worry about is like the next bill they got to pay. And that's pretty much like it. And then just getting to that point for them.
And I'm sure the majority of them end up having IEPs. So that they need that that individual learning. And for a lot of these kids, like the world's betting against them, and they just need somebody in their life to say, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
Like you may not have faith in you, but I have faith in you. And I think a lot of times with BD kids, we're just like, oh, they're bad. Like they're going to be bad forever. Let's just get them through so that they can go be bad the next life. But some of these kids you literally have like interactions with, and that one interaction could change their lives.
Oh, yeah.
I had a kid who he was my worst kid. Like if I could have fought a 14-year-old kid, like this would have been the kid I would have fought.
Yeah.
He was, but I knew like he had a good heart, and like we would go at it every day. But the one thing that we loved together was football. And I'm all like, dude, like if you want to go, he's a freshman and he's like, I want to go play college football. I'm all like, well, you're not if you're here.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to want a college football player in a BD school not playing football. Like you're already missing the requirements of one, being in a regular school, and two, playing football. And so I think so I ended up leaving, and that kind of, this kid that I fought with every day about, oh, you don't like whatever. And now I get like monthly texts from him, like, hey, like watch this highlight. Hey, watch this. He plays for Cahokia now.
Gotcha.
And so I actually got to coach against him last year at Granite, and I got to coach again this year at Cahokia. And so him going through the struggle of Granite and like not getting kicked out of school, and not getting kicked off the football team, and like sticking out the season that they had last year, and then getting the opportunity. His mom or dad lives in Cahokia, one of the two. To go into Cahokia, who already had a pretty good team, and then this year they were pretty amazing.
Were they a semifinal team?
They made it pretty far.
They were quarterfinal or semifinal, I think.
Yeah, we played them. It was a good game, but it was just like you knew it was like, man, they had something special going on there. I hope they can kind of keep the success. They had a lot of they always have a lot of speed, but this year was like I think they had the guy who got second place or first place in the 100-meter dash. That was their star receiver. It was like, if you let him go, he's gonna score.
Yeah, I mean, you just tell that's the kid. You just tell, run as fast as you can, so your quarterback go as far as you can.
Yeah. But the kid he played O-line, D-line, and you never saw, like, you could tell all that trauma that he had, all that stuff growing up, all those behavior problems he took out in between the whistles, and he finally figured out, like, hey, this can be an outlet for all the trauma that I'm dealing with. And he tore it up. He hasn't made a decision where he's going to play yet, but I'm super excited for him. And even losing to them, as much as you want to win as a coach, being a voice in that kid's life and just giving him a hug and just be like, dude, I told you, like, and he even sent a post out, like, they called me Mr. Steve because apparently Mr. Rulo was too hard to say.
That's got to be a common thing. Oh my God, that was almost that's got to be a common thing in like an alternative setting where it's like Mr. or Mrs. whatever your first name is. Because like even I have kids in my class who I honestly at first I think it's because they didn't know what my last name was. They just saw like James whatever on my name tag, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. James, can you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. I'll respond to that. I don't care." But it's just I think that's just a common thing. I don't know what started that. I don't know what it is, but
which is so. And then in football and even teaching, like, so now I go by either Coach Rulo or Mr. Rulo, and someone would be up, and I'll be like, "Hey, Steven Rulo." They're like, your name's Steven?
Steve?
They're like, I'm like, what did you think my name was? And they're all like,
Mister?
Coach, Mister. Like, we had no idea. I was like, I wasn't hiding it from anybody. But and then when they find out my name is Steven with a PH, that really that ticks people off. They're like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. What do you call 11? Do you spell 11 with a PH too? I'm all like, it's not that deep. I didn't choose it. Blame my mom. But yeah, dude, being in a behavioral school, that's like, it's a special place for special people. And it's like, it's not for everybody. They have a lot of jobs because it's a very, very, very hard job.
Yes. And I think Cernicroc is almost like the perfect person to lead a school like that, because he's always trying to do what is best for the kids, regardless of what his actual job title is. And he's always pushing us to be like, listen, like, this is a hard job. And if you need time off, like, take time for yourself too. Like
Mm-hmm.
he always says that self-care isn't selfish, and I think that's important because like sometimes, especially around this time of year, teachers are like mentally exhausted.
Yes.
It's not so much the physical exhaustion, it's the mental, like dealing with a group of kids every single day for 6, 7, 8 hours.
Yeah.
And it takes a toll. And he's very big on, if you need time off, take it, because I need you all at 100%. So between him and our SRO, Catlin, he's awesome. I mean, everybody that's in the building has been in some way, shape, or form in a special ed room, in an alternative setting, in some kind of individualized education where they're able to relate to the students. They know what is best for them, and they're just awesome at what they do.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a lot of success because of the staff in that building.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that goes a little unnoticed, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always want to hear about the alternative school, because usually when you're hearing a lot about it, it's not great things.
Yeah.
But we've pushed out way more graduates than we've had dropouts, and I think
good. That's huge.
That's a huge thing.
And
because even just getting one, for me, like, that's the biggest thing, is just focus on one. Just focus on getting one out at a time. Because if you think of it in terms of like percentages, like, you're not going to be happy, because there are going to be some kids that don't make it, and that's not your fault. It is what it is, and you have to just kind of move past that, help them out as much as you can. I mean, there's kids that aren't there anymore. Shoot, on my way here, I stopped at a gas station, saw a kid that he didn't make it, and he was there working a job. He was working at Casey's, and I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's like, "Oh, I'm doing great. He's working, making good paychecks. I'm living with my girlfriend now." And I'm like, heck yeah, man,
dude, that's huge. Like, you're supposed, like, a lot of those kids, it's like, man, we thought you're gonna end up in jail. So the fact that you're working, is huge.
And we're really lucky to be close to Lewis and Clark, because they have a program as well that you can go, and they'll pretty much like pay you to go to work and pay you to
That's awesome.
get it's not even a GED, it's a high school equivalency. So however, whether it's colleges or employers, it'll pull up as like a high school diploma.
I wish that Lewis and Clark would be pushed way more in this area, just because, like, it's so, even like for us with SWIC, I think a lot of our kids go to SWIC, but like me, I was an athlete, didn't have a football team. If Lewis and Clark had a football team, oh my gosh.
They would be competing for JUCO national titles on a yearly basis.
Yes, but like, when I went to Greenville, which was a good school, but it was like so expensive, and I'm like, man, stuff happened with me and the football team, and then I was shopping for schools, but it's really hard to move up when you're a D3 player. So it's like, hard. Okay, I got to shop D3 to D3. I looked at Illinois College because you were there.
I was trying to get you hardcore,
and I was like, man, that's a little bit more expensive. And a lot of my credits wouldn't that's another thing about private schools, dude. To get out is almost like you almost have to completely restart, because there's credits that you have to have for their school that other schools are all like, why don't you have this here? Like, that's a freshman level course, and you're all like, well, I didn't know.
And I think a lot of that is like a scheme on their part to get you to not leave and to keep giving them your money.
Yeah.
But I mean, I completely get what you're saying, because shoot, I just did my observation. What was it, like Wednesday? And the whole lesson was like college and career readiness, and we did like a personality test, and it gave you like career paths you can take, and it made you pick a major off of that, and like you got to like look through a list of schools and compare that to like what you would be interested in. And a lot of them were, oh, that's too expensive. I'm looking, I'm like, it's only $13,000 a semester. I'm like, go ahead and look up Illinois College.
Yeah.
I was like, and a couple of them were like, how did you pay for that? I'm like, I still am.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have student debt. Nobody's told me. So hopefully I thought Biden was gonna get rid of him.
My parents helped out a ton with college. There's still a lot of like scholarships and like just what's God, I can't. I'm blanking on the word, but like
grants.
yeah, like where you pay it back, but there's like no interest and it's just kind of on your own time. It's like an honor system kind of
Yeah.
scholarship.
It's like a loan,
Yeah,
but it's an interest-free loan.
yeah, it's got a lot of those that I'm working on paying back.
Yeah.
But my wife has been like every time they're like, oh, we're gonna cancel the federal student loans, and she gets really excited, and then they push it off, and she's
I know it's something that presidents say to get elected by young people, and it's like at this point I'm all like, no, they're not, but I'm all like, it'd be cool if you did.
It'd be a lot cooler if you
Yeah,
did.
I get why people don't want that, because it's like, well, if you didn't want to go to college, then you should have known what you could afford, and I'm all like, yeah, I get it, but what if they do?
Yeah, or the people that have already paid theirs off, and they're like, well, do I get a check now?
Yeah,
you can't satisfy anybody.
No,
There's no.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to. There's so many people in this world. It's you got people that are conservative. You got people that are liberal. You got people that are me that are like, I don't know.
Yeah, just kind of somewhere in between.
I don't know what's going on. Can we all just be friends?
Yeah. Come on, people. You don't need to be arguing, especially on my Facebook page.
Yeah. Have you seen those TikToks about the chill guy?
Yeah,
that's literally me.
That's me when it comes to politics. Just like, yeah, whatever, man.
Yeah. So, we both kind of started our coaching journey together.
Yeah.
With middle school. Shout out to the people that now graduated from our middle school.
Well,
team.
our seventh graders about to be seniors.
I know, that's crazy. It is crazy, and we so we started there, and now we're kind of both assistant, but we're underclass coaches, but we help at the varsity.
Yep.
So, what would you say? We'll start with middle school, and we can kind of go through this together now that I'm reminiscing about middle school and teaching out of middle school. What was that journey like for you?
So, my coaching journey got started. I probably have one of the most unique starts to my professional career, because I graduated college in the middle of a global pandemic. Didn't even really get to finish my student teaching. I was in the middle of my ed TPA, actually teaching my ed TPA in the middle of that week. I only had 2 more lessons to get through, and they shut down schools. Wednesday was a normal school day, and then by the following Monday I was moving out of my dorm room. There was no time.
Yeah.
And so originally the plan was I was going to apply to schools around Jacksonville. I was maybe going to help coach at IC, because I had talked to my defensive coordinator, Lee Tenenoff at the time, like, hey, if I'm around here, would I be able to help out? And I was like, I just want the coaching experience. You don't even really got to pay me.
Yeah.
And because in the back of my mind, I'm like, you wouldn't really pay me that much to begin with. So I just want the coaching experience. I just want to get into it. And the plan was I was going to stay around there and coach at IC, but things didn't end up working out the way I thought they would. So I ended up moving back to town. And the way that I kind of got invited to coach was I had applied to the school district just to be a sub, because there was really no positions opened, and they're not really looking to hire anybody in the middle of a pandemic, because they don't really know, are we going to be in school? What's going on? And of all people, I run into Nick Cernicroc at Sinclair's getting groceries, and he's like, hey, are you still wanting to coach? I know you, because I've helped out over the summers.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, absolutely. He goes, okay, well, here's Coach John's phone number. Why don't you give him a call and let him know who you are and you're interested in all that. And so I call him that night and, hey, Coach Johns, I'm James Medford. My brother's Will Medford. He's playing for you right now. I'm just finished college. I'm looking to start coaching. And he was like, we'd love to have you, and we'd love to make you the 3rd official head coach in our program. And I'm like, what does that mean? He was like, well, we've got a varsity head coach, which is me. We've got an underclass JV coach, which I think was Skinner at the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then he was like, well, between you and Rulo, I figure you guys can figure it out. It's like, oh, perfect. I love that. So we show up, and I think there's 3 different points where we think the season's going to start, and then they're just like, nope, can't do it.
Yeah.
But we end up starting to play. I think, did we have practices that fall? Did we start practicing?
Yeah, but it was weird. We had a practice with basketball, and we had
Yeah.
We had like circuits.
Oh,
You remember
yeah.
that? Yeah.
I remember the circuits at the track.
And so, which was cool because I'm all like, dude, you play basketball? Like, you
Could
can
play
you know, can play football. I
It's
won't.
like, you're like, even better. Football's after basketball this year, man. You get to do both.
Yeah. But yeah, it was weird. So we had to do all outside. And one day you could not wear masks. The other
Yeah.
day you had to wear masks. So it was super.
Having to check
Like-
and sign kids in every single
Oh my
day
goodness.
and take
And
their
take
temperatures. That was definitely a unique start to a football coaching career,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, I coached the year before.
Uh-huh.
And it was like normal. It was cool. I had what's his name? Burkowski.
Yeah.
Burkowski was my other coach.
Yes,
He's so awesome.
he is awesome.
So I coached with him, and then the next year it was like like what is going on? And so it was, dude, it was wild. You had to do the circuits.
Mhm.
You had to clean off everything.
Spray down
as
and
soon
wipe
as it was
the
done.
deadlift bars.
Yeah, and then you have kids wanting to obviously hang out with each other,
Yeah.
push and shove each other, be kids, and it's like,
quit touching each other. I want to play.
yeah. So yeah, but it definitely was a good or a
Yeah.
weird spot for
Mhm.
football.
Yeah. So, once we started that season, and I think we started we started practice like end of February, maybe.
Yeah,
And then I think we varsity ended up playing 6 games. And I honestly kind of liked the way the varsity season went. Not like the results of it because we finished 1-5, but
yeah,
I like the way it was set up. Like the first 3 games were kind of like play-in games, and then there was a tournament, and we almost got screwed out of our last week game because I can't remember who it was, but they got shut down for like quarantine or something.
yeah.
But then Highland ended up being like, "Hey, we'll play you, man. Like
Yeah.
we're looking for a last week game too."
So and
So
they kicked the crap out of us.
Yeah,
Jerks. We'll play and kick the crap out.
I
of
still
you.
remember that kid's name, Logan Chandler, because he scored like 8 times and
Yeah.
had like 350 yards because they didn't have a quarterback. But I did kind of like, we kind of treated it like spring ball. Like we approached it like, okay, yeah, we'll give the seniors their flowers. You know, they stuck it out this long. Kind of sucks that their senior season didn't get to go this way. But we get a chance to kind of build a little bit here and kind of build towards the summer and then hit the summer really hard and then come back in August and just start going full bore and we'll have everything in already.
Yeah.
So then that summer was technically the start of like my full-time like non-weird coaching career.
Yeah.
So but yeah, once that summer hit, then it was just because you were already in Collinsville at that point, right?
I was, I moved, and
Mhm.
I didn't know if I was going to coach or not.
Yeah, but so and then it was just me and Skinner running the fresh off. I was no longer doing because that season I coached like 5 different teams. I was doing I was doing 7th grade. I was helping with 8th grade. I was the fresh soft defensive coordinator. Technically the JV defensive coordinator, but I was pretty much the same team, just plus like 3-4 juniors. And then I was helping Tonzer on Friday nights, like charting plays and doing stuff like that. Just I was trying to learn as absolutely much as I could about football in that like year span, because coming out of college, I was a defensive lineman in college, so like the whole like scheme of everything was totally above my head. I was like, I know how to split a double team and I know where to line up. That is about it. But I think one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of stay and coach at IC is because of the relationship I built with my defensive coordinator, who is funny enough now at Greenville.
Yeah.
He's the defensive coordinator there. But and I still text with him every now and then. But I built that relationship with him, and I was like, I want to learn as much as I can from you, because like I want to coach, and like that's the thing that I'm gonna do like for the rest of my life, regardless of anything else.
Yeah.
And I want to learn as much as I can, and that was what was keeping me there. And then whenever I ended up in Jerseyville, I was lucky to show up and I've got Rick Johns 2 state championships. I've got Scott Tonder, who's been all over the place. I've got Chris Skinner, who's been head coach all over. Like he's I have a bunch of coaches ahead of me that have been doing this for 40 something years.
Yeah.
And, it was great to learn under all of them. And shoot, I'm going on my 6th year and I'm still learning. I don't nearly have the amount of knowledge that I want to have, and I'm still learning. A lot of the things I try to focus on, especially now, is like the culture of it. And, do I want to be a head coach someday? Probably, yeah. But I've got a long ways to go before I go.
Yeah.
There's been a couple jobs popping up around the place. North Green just went up.
Dude, I got so many messages when that happened.
I'm like, please stop. I'm not. I was like, I would love to, but I'm not ready for that yet.
So Rhodes is 30. He's low 30s.
Yeah.
I think he might be 33.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, how are you already a head coach and doing well?
Yeah. I would say I went and it was 2 years ago at the clinic in Champaign. I went and listened to his morning talk, and his whole thing was on culture and how there's like those leadership meetings and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things that like we kind of took from that. And the thing that blew my mind, I'm like, this guy doesn't look much older than me. Like, how is he already this like accomplished? And you like whenever Atkins started at Jerseyville, he was what? He wasn't 30 yet, was he?
No, he was 28 or 29. Yeah.
He was really young.
So he was pretty much our.
Yeah, he was about 2 years older than me at that point.
And he was a head coach before.
Yeah.
Crazy thing.
It's just, you get these coaches that get their start really early, and then there's me who I'm like, I'm not ready for that yet. I will be someday, but just not right this minute.
Yeah. But I think the thing that scares me about being a head coach of like a full program is the organizational side of things. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to worry about football 365 days a year. Like, I already do that now. Like, I'm always thinking, but I'm not like, okay, what fundraisers are we going to do? Okay, I got to get a practice plan set up. How do I want, because even though you're a head coach and usually the head coach runs offense, you have a D coordinator runs defense. It's all like, hey, I want my hand on that because it's my team.
Yes.
Like, my team, my name goes in the paper. My name is on this. So I want to kind of, I don't know if I'm ready to get my hands dirty and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So before this year, our head coach, Caleb, he was calling both offense and defense. And Adam was his guy for offense in the booth. I was his guy for defense in the booth. And we were just feeding him information. Like, the amount of organization I had, like, charting for defense, I like to filter things by like down and distance and formation and their best plays out of that formation. That way I can just be like, hey, it's 1st and 10, we're on the 43-yard line, they're in pro right, and power's going that way, counter trey's going that way, or it's quick screen, and he would just belt out a call and we'd go. But now we've got Bishop running the defense, and I don't know if I've ever seen somebody like live, eat, and breathe football like that guy.
Dude,
does.
He's like, it's like an obsession, and I think that's why he had to step away for so long.
Literally on my way up here, he will like text me throughout the week, just random like. He will just like text me just paragraphs about like, hey, against this team they do this motion, and when they do this motion, it's not really noticeable, but I notice it, and it's just like it's like this guy is and whenever we get to Friday nights, we knew him as a player as like, this guy's crazy, like he is insane, but as a coach, I'm like, this guy, like, he knows what they're doing before they know that they're going to do it.
I think that's why he gets so frustrated.
He gets very frustrated.
And I think that's why he gets so frustrated is because he's all like, I'm literally giving
He's like, I am telling you the answers to this, and you are failing miserably. But, and the thing is with his defense is that it's not simple, but it's, as a player, he makes it very easy for you to get your reads and very easy for you to understand what your job is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's very fun to watch when it's going and going well.
Yeah.
Like, I try not to like relive the glory days.
Yeah.
But like my freshman year, 8th grade year, whenever the varsity team went 10-1, it was the same stuff that we're running now. and those guys were just flying around like hair on fire, like just insane human beings. Like just they see a football and they're gonna go tackle it and murder it, and it was fun to watch. And that season was a product of everybody executing every single play, no matter what.
Yeah.
And it makes it frustrating when you see success like that, and then even just the following year, we go from 10-1 with, we had a Division I quarterback, but then we follow up the next year with Billy, who was another great quarterback. He threw for 2,500 yards that year, but our defense dropped off a lot. And it's not like we lost a whole ton. It's just, guys weren't as like in tune as that class before.
Yeah.
And
I think the big thing is you have to have a very good tackling safety.
Yes.
And the two best tackling safeties he ever had was Corey Snyder,
yes.
who I coach with and is my freaking best friend and is amazing.
Went on to
being.
be a college All-American.
Yes, his freshman year. And then when we were playing Brandon Ballman, who is one of the best athletes I've ever seen, who I wish he never had injury problems because
Dude, I was so mad whenever it was going to be my senior year and he had to miss the entire season. I was so mad because I was like, dude, you would have been an absolute animal that year.
Yeah.
And, would he have prevented us from going 1-8? Maybe. He would have made a difference, yes, but there was more issues than just that one.
Yeah.
But the Bishop is he likes a specific kind of player. He's very like, yes, you're a corner, but if you aren't going to tackle, you are not going to be on the field.
Yes.
I don't care if you are a 5-star man-to-man corner. If you're not going to tackle anybody, you're going to be a 5-star riding the bench. He does not care. And, he's very open to young guys getting in there. I think we had more young guys playing this year than I've ever seen before. I think at one point, more than one point, at several points throughout the year, I think our entire defensive secondary as starters were all sophomores or juniors.
Yeah.
And, he's not afraid to sub guys in, and I'm kind of the same way. I'm a firm believer in getting guys reps early on.
Yeah.
I was able to run special teams this year, and for lack of better options, a lot of my special teams units were primarily composed of sophomores because that sophomore class we have is huge.
Yeah.
I think there was like 21 sophomores and then only like 11 seniors and 12 or 13 juniors. And, we went the whole year and we're like, we can't really do two-way guys on special teams, because that's already hard enough on them.
Yeah.
And we got to the end of the year and I'm like, well, we haven't given up a kick return touchdown yet. I'm sure there's been about 10 to 12 that have gotten back to our own 30 or 40, but, and it's just, there's so many young guys, and special teams with guys that young is a total crapshoot. You have no idea what they're going to do on any given time.
Yeah.
Like there's several kickoffs where like, okay, I'm going to watch and make sure everybody's in their lane, and our contained guy's on the hash, our guy on the numbers is on the sideline somehow, and our gunner's on his back. And there he goes. Like, it's just, you never know what is going to happen. I wish there was more time throughout the week where we could do special team stuff, but there's only so much you can fit in whenever you can only practice for like 2.5 hours every night.
Yeah. You almost have to have a dedicated special teams day, but it's all like, we
kind of do on Thursdays,
but
at the same time, it's like, well, we got to get through offense and defense first, and I don't want to be out here till 6 o'clock on a Thursday. Yeah. So it's like, you just have to kind of have to roll with it. You have to be very efficient in your time. And I think there were times where, and a lot of that's on me, is that we weren't very efficient on Thursdays getting through. And then we started doing like situational, like we would just like kind of simulate a game like on a Thursday, and we would go full speed, like we're going live like on Thursdays, and we're just simulating a game. So scout team is like best of what we got, or our ones are out there, and then Coach Williams is just shouting out like 3rd and 10, got to get it or we're punting. And then if we don't get it, send the punt team out, let them go, and then we're just kind of going as we can. I think when it comes to special teams, I think the most important thing is discipline, because special teams is still a third of the game.
Yeah.
Like there's still a lot of games that are won and lost off of special teams. Yeah. Like shoot, the greatest college football game of all time, they won on a missed field goal that was returned for a touchdown because they had just a bunch of linemen on the field and didn't really think, hey, what if they return this? So they didn't really have their athletes out there, and that overlook cost them a game. And so I spend a lot of the time throughout the week like, okay, what guys do I have left that I can use on special teams? And I will try to put them in the best positions possible. But
and the new JV rules, like who can play JV the day after, that's rough.
It's like one snap counts as a quarter.
Yeah.
Like if you play one snap in each quarter on a Friday night, you can't play on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And and then you got to turn around on Mondays, and if you play and get any contact on Monday, you can't do any contact in practice on Tuesdays. Which for us, that really kills us, because especially this year, our JV team was 65% of our entire program.
Yeah.
So, there were some freshmen that could do contact on Tuesdays, but none of the juniors, none of the sophomores. So that leaves our seniors and a handful of freshmen to run practice on Tuesday. So, we had to improvise, and we started using like a lot of hand shields and just stuff like that to just do what we can.
Which is good for health, bad for real game feel as a coach.
Because then you get kids like, Coach, they're on Friday, like, Coach, they're not holding pads. Yeah, no kidding. Like, there's a lot of rules that we got to get around. Well, not get around, but rules that you have to account for that you don't really think about like before the season starts, and then as the season is going, you're dealing with injuries, you're dealing with like ineligibilities, you got guys in all kinds of different positions, and it makes things like special teams a little bit harder to kind of get through, because it's almost like you're reteaching everything every week.
Yeah.
Because you got new guys in every spot. So, that was a fun new challenge for me this year.
Which I think at Collinsville, and I may be wrong, but I believe it's true, the last 3 years we have not had one kid ineligible at the varsity program. Now, obviously, fresh soft, you're teaching kids how to be high schoolers. That's different. Yeah. But I think we only had one kid this year at one or two at fresh soft level, which is, I've never had that before in my life.
I'm trying to think about if we had really. I don't think, and I can't really think back to anybody like anybody that like really played that was ineligible. That I can't really think of anybody, because we had guys that were close.
Yeah. Like
we had a lot of stud guys that were like, this guy is one missing assignment away from playing football ever again.
Yeah.
So, we're kind of lucky to not have to deal with that as regularly as some other schools do, but
we've had a pretty good GPA through the last, and that's something like that we try to strive for. I have been coaching or texting threads all the time with coaches at the school, like, hey, we need to talk to this kid because he's in danger of failing and not being able to play next year. So that's something that you don't think about coaching, like on the outside. It's all like, oh, they're just football players and they don't show up to class the rest of the year. It's like, no, they may not show up to class, but it's not because we're not trying to push them to show up.
We're forcing them in if we have to.
So man, coaching underclass football.
Yes.
And I think you named it as much as possible with special teams. It's a crapshoot.
It is.
Yeah. So I was pretty lucky to have a fresh soft team / schedule this year, because our freshmen didn't have a lot of numbers, but we were really talented freshman class. Jerseyville's pretty much gone to just strictly JV.
So this year we were lucky enough to actually have a freshman schedule. I think it's the first time since that spring season that we've had a freshman schedule.
Yeah.
And, you know, they struggled at first because, you know, they're a group that hasn't won a whole lot.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of numbers, especially with the linemen. They got a ton of skill kids, and they got a lot of really talented skill kids. They've got maybe like, I think we started this year with maybe 7 linemen.
Yeah.
And, you know, they struggled because I think about 3 or 4 of those linemen hadn't played football before.
Yeah.
So it was hard for them, especially coming off the year they had the year before as 8th graders, because I think they only scored like 1 touchdown that entire season. And, you know, with a group like that, you just have to you got to find a new battle every week. You got to we got to score this week. We got to hold the other team to less than 35.
Yeah.
We got to find some form of a win here. And that, I think that first game with them, we went to Freeburg, which the whole story with going to Freeburg was another freaking ordeal.
Yeah.
Because
I was so mad we didn't get to play you guys.
I know.
I was so mad.
Yeah. Well,
you know how hard I pushed for that game?
Yeah. And I think originally we were going to, but
yeah, it was the last game of the day, and you guys had to leave.
Because the night before we were supposed to play Roxana, and it ended up getting, I don't remember if it was stormed out or rain or whatever.
No, it was an over amount of rain.
Yeah,
we played, and it didn't. I think it missed us, but it was like your guys' field was trashed.
we ended up moving it to Saturday at like 1. And so right after they said that, I go back in the coach's office and I ask Coach Williams, I'm like, so are we scratching tomorrow morning or what's the plan? He's like, let me ask around. So we ended up still going, but we had to call, I forget Freeburg's AD's name, but we call up there and I'm like, hey, listen, here's the deal. All right. Usually this wouldn't be a deal, but we've only got 5 coaches in the program and 2 of them are going tomorrow. So we've got to be out of there at a certain time. So he was like, no big deal. We'll just move the schedule around. So we show up, get off the bus, get dressed at Freeburg first. They end up, it was like what, 12-minute running clock or something.
It was that. Yeah.
It was really short.
They scored a lot of touchdowns really fast.
We ended up losing that one like 28-0 in about 12 minutes of real time. And then that was kind of their welcome to high school football moment, because they were like, this is an offense I haven't seen before. This is a place I haven't been before. Like, this is a unique experience. And then we end up going, I think it was like Freeburg and then Breeze Mater Dei and then Belleville East was the other team there. Yeah. And then we ended up just leaving after that. And I think we ended up getting like 2 first downs against Belleville East, and that was about the highlight of that day. Yeah. But
Belleville East just has so many kids.
Oh my God, they showed up with like 50-something kids for a freshman jamboree. I was
we ended up beating them, but it was close. So we went O'Fallon, Belleville East, which is normal because they're our size school. Yeah. And then we went Freeburg, and Freeburg absolutely, which was a smaller school, and I think our kids thought, they're a smaller school. I'm like, no, these guys are going to punch you in the mouth. Yeah.
Those are grown men.
These guys are going to punch you in the mouth and not care.
Yeah.
But the jamborees are fun because they're like, they don't really matter. They matter because you get a lot of reps, you get a lot of everything, but they don't matter because you're not really keeping score, and you just get to see kind of where your team's at for the year.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the theme with freshman football especially, is that, like, listen, it's important to learn how to win, but winning is not the most important thing at that level. Yeah. Like, it's just all about developing. Yeah. And some of those guys understood that and would take the good with the bad, and they would learn. And some of them would just be like frustrated and all pissed off because we lost. Like, listen, pal, we've got 17 kids. We just played Triad, who has 45 freshmen. Yeah. We weren't winning that game. Yeah. Like, we could have played with them a little bit better than we did, but we would have ran out of gas at any given point. Like, even if you're in the best shape of your life, you go 45-17 and you go 4 quarters of football, we're going to slow down, and they're not.
We played them, so our starting quarterback was injured. So we only had, it was a freshman-only game, so we only had 21 or 22 freshmen, which is small for a school our size. But we had a backup quarterback, and which he could have been the starter pretty easily. They're both pretty interchangeable. But then he played both ways, and so I'm trying to keep him off defense. But he was our starting linebacker too. But we had our 5 best players out. Dude, we went all the way to the last whistle with him. And then that kid that was our starting quarterback got injured in the second quarter. So it's all like, okay, passing's out the window now.
Yeah,
we had our starting tight end went down, and then his backup went down, and so then we had to move a left guard back to play tight end.
That's awesome.
And we're running power like crazy, running power with our tight end filling like crazy, and we ended up going to the last whistle with them, and it was all like, and so at the end, kids are obviously emotional because they want to win, but it's all like, hey, and then our starting running back didn't show up to practice, so I had to suspend him for a half.
That's tough.
And but we like literally last whistle, and then I got him at the end. They're all upset because they're all like, which is good for me because I'm all like, they didn't see this as like, hey, it's just a game to play. Like they cared so much and wanted to win that game, and I'm all like, you guys don't understand how flippin' proud of you because we should have lost this game by 50, but you guys literally competed till the last whistle with a pretty good freshman team.
Yeah. And the start of the freshman year, it took them about half the season to kind of start to get it. Like at first there was a lot of like, oh, they scored. It was a lot of, oh, here we go again. And, you start to see heads hanging. You start to see guys not doing the little things right. Like guys like not even getting in a stance. Like my left tackle is just standing there with his hands on his knees when the ball is snapped. Like guys, I understand that you haven't had a lot of success, and I understand that is hard, like both emotionally and physically. But regardless, you can't just bow out the second it gets hard, because what does that set you up for the rest of your life? That's just like, oh well, I didn't get the job I wanted. I'm just gonna go on welfare. Like, no, that's not how it works. But you have to kind of instill in them like this belief that even when things are going bad, like there's going to be things that end up happening that you're going to enjoy playing football at some point.
Yeah.
Right now, probably not, because it's, we just got beat 50-0, but it's going to get better.
Yeah.
After the Freeburg game where we went back to Freeburg 2 weeks after the Jamboree, I literally told them, I was like, the first thing I was like, well, bright side, there's no way it can get any worse than that.
Yes.
Like there's only good things that can come from this. And it's all about like the choice you make going into the rest of the season. With that group, a lot of it is just talking culture with them, like getting them to like buy into what we're doing and getting them to understand that there's a lot of power in just having the right mentality. Like I talk with them a lot about the get to versus the have tos.
Yeah.
And like, you can think, oh well, we have to wake up at 6:30 in the morning in the summer to practice, and we have to go lift, and we have to do all these things. Or you can think, we get to do these things. We get to lift, and we get to get stronger, and we get to get more athletic, and we get to get better at football.
Yeah.
And some of them don't think like that. And I think as the year went on, they started to think like that, and they came this close to beating Highland in the last week.
Dang.
It was like 14-14 with like 3 minutes left. Highland had the ball, and they just throw it out. They had a kid, the receiver, that was a stud. He was like 6 foot, about 190 pounds, and he was hard to tackle. And they just threw an out screen to him, and he busts one. And it's like, yeah, well, you'll have that. And then we go back down, and we're trying to score, and we get the ball inside like the 20 with like a minute 15 left, and we just run like QB counter tray, and our quarterback, who is like the third quarterback we've tried at this point with the freshman, who ends up being solid, and he's going to have a shot to be the varsity backup next year.
Yeah.
But he gets wrapped up, and he tries to reach for the first down because